Welcome to 3 on the Ones and Twos with your hosts, Tom, Cassie, and James. Just 3 old friends talking about their favorite records. Think of it as the coolest book club for music nerds.
So, I plan on bringing a guest tonight. My friend Lars Nagel, Atlanta musician.
Atlanta legend.
Yeah, Atlanta legend.
Lars
Great
Nagel.
friend of ours. Played with him on stage and off stage for years. And during the pandemic, we developed the BLT show on the Come On to My House page on Facebook.
Wednesday nights?
Yeah, we've had so much fun with it. And I love Lars. I love his approach to music, and I also love him as a fan of music. You know, and he was all set, and he had a great record to pick. But well, things are gearing up. And
people are getting busy.
The world's opening up again, and he had some family stuff come up that he couldn't make it today. He understands that we're still going to talk about this record, and we'll have him as a guest down the road and talk about another favorite record of his. I mean, luckily for him, I don't think we'll have a hard time finding a favorite record of his. I think he'll have 10 or 20 good ones. But he picked a really awesome record that I knew was going to enter this show. I just didn't know when, and I'm glad it's entered this early. So, what record is it?
It is Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska.
What? Yes.
What?
Boom.
Yes. And we are back at our stomping grounds.
Trackside Tavern.
Trackside Tavern, established 1982. Thank you, Mikey. Thank you, Brian Colantuno, and the staff. Louis Sandoval and PBR, Jameson,
Yes, cheers.
and the staff and the crew and everybody. And I know
get to
we're all double shot and vaccinated, and we're following CDC guidelines, but we're also following our friends at Trackside's guidelines. So if people walk close to us, or if we're walking around, we wear masks.
Wear masks. So
But having beers, talking about music, which are like my favorite things to do,
let's go for
let's
it.
do it, yeah.
All right.
What do you want to say about this record?
Well, I'm going to start out with something kind of controversial.
Here
and I
we go.
have a lot of these.
That's so weird.
I have a lot of these. So weird for me. I'm glad that Lars picked Nebraska. I do like Bruce Springsteen, but I am not a huge Springsteen fan. I know most people are.
I know where you. I think he's a love-or-hate guy, to be honest with you. And
Really?
yes, and I.
Because I don't love him or hate
and
him.
I've been on both sides of that.
Really?
Yeah. You know,
Do you really hate? Can you hate Bruce
No,
Springsteen?
you can't.
I don't
think it's not a
no.
hate.
Okay. So
You
the good thing
either
about the show is you
super
can
love him.
you can be wrong sometimes.
Yeah,
Oh,
you're
we
a
can
super
disagree.
fan, or you're like, he's cool.
I love,
Yeah.
his first appearance in London in 1975 doing Thunder Road, forever will give me Braille and goosebumps. There's some things that he's done that annihilate me that I love. And then there's some things I'm like, I don't see why he's that big for that, you know? But also, you can shoot me in the street for this, I'm sorry.
Well, so I'm not a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, but this album, it kind of veers a different direction.
Big time.
And there are reasons for it, but it veers a different direction, and I like that because I think a lot of what I maybe don't like as much is that it is the backing of the E Street Band, like that kind of
The
sound. It's just a
overproduction.
little- all of
Yes.
that, right? And so this album, the most interesting thing to me about it, actually there are a lot of interesting things, but I really love like the acoustic,
Sure.
it's mostly, except for like 2 songs, it's all acoustic, and it's all Bruce Springsteen because it's a demo.
It's not on 4-track. This
It's
was
all
supposed
a
to be an
demo.
E Street. It was supposed to be an E Street Band
It's
album.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
It was written as a demo. He wrote the songs and he recorded them just on just the 4-track.
4-track, yeah.
At home, and was gonna take it for the E Street Band, and so he carried the cassette around, from what I understand, like in his pocket without a case, like for several days. And then when they got in the studio and he started, they started playing with it. I mean, so many of these songs.
They wouldn't sound good with a full band.
And I believe it was John Landau, the producer, that was saying, because him and Bruce Springsteen are the only people that had any like creative decision
Playing
making
input,
in this,
yeah,
on
production.
This one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I wouldn't want to hear Nebraska or Atlantic City with a full band,
I
or
wouldn't either.
electronic
It would
drums,
totally,
or whatever.
It would take away from it.
I mean, this is the album right before Born in the USA.
Exactly.
And Born in the USA,
Which
the song was written in the same
came
demo.
out 2 years
Yeah.
later. Came out 2 years later.
But this is the one that preceded it, but came after all of these classic Bruce
Sure.
Springsteen,
Yeah.
the
Darkness on the
classic
Edge of
albums.
Town. Yeah.
So it is such a gap between. It's almost like you have this ramp up, and then they just, like you said, like a complete left turn, and then back for
But the only reason
to that
it's,
progression.
I think the only reason it is a left turn is because Bruce Springsteen and John Landau realized that they weren't going to replicate.
Right.
They weren't going to. A lot of these songs didn't work with the band, and
No.
they weren't going to. Even Bruce Springsteen said even when he tried to just redo them acoustically,
Yeah.
he could not get the same feel
No.
that he did.
There were pretty accidents and pretty mistakes on it.
And it worked. It worked the way it was. So.
Which I don't think is his process.
No, not at all.
Actually.
Well,
I mean,
that-
if you think about it, like the 1982 E Street Band 80s production with this
That's
album,
the thing.
like you
It
said,
would've
it would.
been- Well, see,
would
so
have been
that leads me to my sort of controversy. Or my next question is: here's a guy who clearly has written some amazing albums and great songs. Goodness gracious, but we're all humans, and as artists, we're insecure. So he didn't even tour on this record. So
Right. Too personal.
did he go like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. Is it going to be good? And over years, it's aged better, and it's considered this cult thing. But did he feel he felt it was great, and he felt it couldn't have been a band project. But also, he might have been like, okay, here's a project I recorded. Let me go to the next thing and do Born in the USA.
No. Actually, Born in the USA. When he made this demo, it was for Born in the USA. The demo had the song Born in the USA on
Okay.
it. It had several other songs that didn't end up on Nebraska. It was supposed to be that album, but then when they looked at some of those songs and when they tried them with the full band, they just didn't work.
It didn't
So
work.
they took they took the songs that they weren't going to use in another
Right.
album, or some of them. I think there's still like maybe 3 or
Which
4
makes
that
me
they
kind
didn't put out.
of want to hear a demo version of Born in the USA. Not even just the song, but the songs on that.
It'd be spooky.
Yeah.
No, like
Would
the-
you hear
the
those
songs-
ghosts? Would you hear those
So
ghosts?
apparently, when the main night that he recorded most of the demos that were on this cassette,
Yeah.
there were like 17 of them, and I think 5 or so maybe ended up on the album, like the Born on the USA, and Born in the USA was one of them. But I don't think that as far as like hearing that version like in the demo format, I don't know that that's ever come out,
right.
but I know that they did Electric Nebraska.
Yes, which I've never listened to. How is it?
I haven't heard Electric Nebraska.
I mean, I don't wanna hear anything about
I
this.
don't think it's something. Is it something that they actually put out, or is it something that like fans you can dig
I think
up?
you have to like dig it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really, I mean, I guess the music fan and music nerd in me would be interested in hearing it once. But like this record,
It's the
for what it's
definitive
done,
version of those songs.
yeah, for what it's
It's
done,
sort of
like I
perfect
love
the
the
way it is.
spookiness, the ghosts, and the.
I love the fact that it was a happy accident, that it was like that this was really ideas that he came up with that were intended to be a completely different, animal than what it ended
Which
up
is
in.
the best
and that
thing
they,
about music,
right?
you know.
And I think
And to
that
recognize that.
right, and to recognize, which I do think was a good bit the John Landau's decision.
Like the opening track.
The opening track is the title track.
Yes, the
because
title
it's-
track,
right.
Nebraska. It literally, I can picture an old man driving in a car through like the most messed
a
up
true
parts
story.
of it. And just
No, but it's based on what is it? I forget, Starkweather. Charles Starkweather and his underage girlfriend Carrie Ann Fugate, they went on some killing spree, and a lot like the one line in it. I should have grabbed my glasses, but there's like the one line about like. I'm not sorry for what I done because we had some fun. That's actually based on.
That's what they said.
That's based on a letter that he wrote to the real guy wrote to his father, and he got the death penalty. He got the chair,
Yeah.
but that he wrote to his father basically saying like I'm not sorry because we had a good time and.
Right,
So-
and but it sets the tone because the thing is
Yeah.
it really sounds like a punk country or a punk Americana like album. Like
Right.
as a matter of fact, like friends over the years, we've made our own versions of mixtapes that we used to make, but on CDs or iPads and stuff,
Right.
And we've had so much fun like mixing stuff. Like we know like old ska goes well with reggae and goes with punk, but like I remember a friend of mine made me a mix, and literally it was Nebraska Fugazi, like one song from Nebraska, one song from Fugazi, and literally it was one of my favorite mixes I ever got.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, somehow this works,
Totally.
Like it was just wonderful. Everything that the three of us love, everything why we did this show that we love in songs is in this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, once they decided that they needed to use the versions that were just on this cassette tape that Springsteen was carrying around in his pocket, for a while they thought that they were
Cheers,
going
guy.
to have to.
Hey, James. Hi, Cass.
Hey.
Happy summer, everybody,
Happy-
and happy health, and happy the world getting back together.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for opening up for
Go
all
ahead.
just now.
So
I just invited the whole world into our living room.
Hey. So they were thinking that they're going to have to put it out on digital
Oh wow, okay.
because the quality. It wasn't really picking up when they were trying to do the pressing in the wax, like a lot of the
right.
Because
It's
it was
giving them
just
challenges because
yeah,
it's so
and-
lo-fi.
and
Sort of
so-
like the first Velvet Underground record where they're
Yeah.
where they just are like, this is noisy, this is not like a traditional studio recording, this is gonna
Right.
be challenging.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those, but so many Stooges or
Yeah.
those early Bomb recordings,
it's-
they're all like that.
Yeah.
And that's what we love. I mean,
But we're
I
talking
don't
about Bruce Springsteen's
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
prime era.
Yeah, exactly.
selling millions of records or whatever,
Well,
going
that's the thing.
into-
So they were nervous because
Yeah.
years have been kind to it. It's aged really well, and
Mm-hmm.
it's now considered probably one of his top 5 of records. Like people are going to mention, cult fans are going to mention it.
Well, I think, but you were talking about the kind of the haunting, like the
Like in Atlantic City, yeah.
Right. Well, I think part of what does that is the fact that it was so low, like it was the low quality on the
Yeah,
cassette.
yeah.
It adds something, and then the fact that it was so stark, like acoustic. And Bruce Springsteen plays every instrument that's on this. It's not like they overdubbed any part of it
Right.
with added anything.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, I think the only
demo.
thing they probably overdubbed was probably some extra vocals.
I don't think they even did that. No, the
No.
backing vocals that you hear, I'm pretty sure are no. From what I understand, it's all actually the demo that Bruce Springsteen did in in his home, and I think even the backing vocals are his voice, just another track, right?
I believe so, yeah. So this is the only Bruce Springsteen album that I own on vinyl.
Wow.
Hey, me too now.
Well, there you
That
go.
says a lot for James.
But when
Joyce.
you talk about it being a punk record,
It is a
that's,
punk record,
That's
yeah.
also why I bought it in the 90s. I grew up in New Jersey. I lived there from 1978 to 1986.
Wow.
So New Jersey and Bruce Springsteen,
Yeah.
it's.
I did not know that. I was about an hour away from
Yeah,
you. And
exactly. I was outside of Newark,
We
New
met
Jersey.
10 years later in Atlanta.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so many people were
Yeah.
from that area
Yeah.
that all lived in Atlanta at that point. But my babysitter, all we would do, I'd get home from school, we'd watch MTV.
Right.
Every afternoon.
Right.
That was all, and me and my babysitter watching
Right.
MTV. And it was, Born in the USA,
Yeah.
all the videos out of that, all of the, I'm on Fire,
Yeah.
and the song, and Glory Days,
Right.
and just all those videos, you just get so
Yeah,
oversaturated.
and that
with
record
Bruce
did nothing
Springsteen.
for me back then. And as an adult
Sure.
now, it's playing on the
Now
radio. I
you-
blast it. I'm driving.
Yeah,
and
you're
I
like,
love it.
this is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I agree. But in the 90s, Nebraska was discussed that this album was heavily influenced. Bruce Springsteen was heavily influenced by the band Suicide
Great band.
and Alan Vega and his vocals. And
He's
you can
actually
hear
covered
it
some
on
Suicide
this.
songs in
He is
concert later.
He does Dream Baby Dream.
He does Dream Baby
right?
Dream, which is a wonderful
Which
song.
I love this connection between. Also, I love Suicide.
I love
I know
Suicide,
this isn't a show about suicide.
Right.
But I do love how big artists grab onto Suicide as this band that they
Right.
want to champion.
Well, because their
that-
songs sound like dreams, and
yeah.
here's Springsteen's the biggest artist in the world at the time, and he's like, man, I want to sound like dreams like this
Yeah.
band. So he's doing his acoustic version of Suicide.
This is a Suicide record. I
Awesome,
say,
okay.
but it's played by Bruce Springsteen on acoustic guitars. It's like the anti. It's like the same thing that Suicide's going for, except without the electronics.
I could see that, yeah.
And the drum and the
Oh,
drum
man,
machines and
yeah,
all
for
that.
sure.
This is like the acoustic sort of Bruce
Acoustic
Springsteen suicide, especially in like I think it's State Trooper.
Yeah.
That's my
The one
favorite
that's just a
that's my
single
favorite.
chord.
Yeah.
They just like do.
That's
And
my
you know when he
favorite.
starts like he has that delay, he has that echoplex on his voice.
Yeah,
And he starts doing those yelps. He starts like.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
That's total Alan Vega. That's like right there, suicide.
It's
like
his
it's
playbook. Yeah.
It's this whole album is like the song Frankie Teardrop,
Mm-hmm.
which I really can't listen to very much. It's about a man who comes home and kills his family.
Oh, wow.
And it's brutal.
that dark, yeah.
When you talk about songs that you have to like skip. You know, you're like,
Yeah.
I love that first Suicide album, but you get to Frankie Teardrop.
You're
But
skipping
this
it.
whole album is like Frankie Teardrop.
Wow. Yeah.
Is the song Frankie Teardrop in album form, is how dark it is.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I love about this album is kind of like, I almost don't look at it like a Bruce Springsteen album.
Well, yeah.
Oh no, State Trooper. I think the one that I like is Highway Patrolman.
They're right back to back.
Right.
So you're like,
and,
Yeah.
Well, it's like Trooper and Patrolman. But I think because Highway Patrolman, that's the one. Because you were saying that part where he kind of like
starts
does
yelping
that,
and-
yeah, and I'm
yeah.
like, wait a minute, that's not on the one that I. So, but the Highway Patrolman, that's the one about where he's talking. It's real simple, it's real pretty, but it's like he's talking about how his brother is kind of a troublemaker, and he turned out to be like kind of, and he's supposed to arrest him, but he kind of lets him go. But he
Right.
lets him go because
Right.
he's like, when it's family, sometimes you look the other way. which
Well,
kind
the
of
whole
his main line.
whole theme is crime.
It is.
The whole,
But I-
it's a crime / suicide route album.
I think what I like about
Hey Brian, yeah, I'll do one. Yes.
I think one of the things that I
Get some ice for twisting James' arm.
I think I love Highway Patrolman. I think part of what I love about it is that some of these songs. I mean, it's pretty and it's
very
bittersweet, and it's talking about family, and it's talking about like the things that happened where he was like a wheat farmer, but then wheat prices dropped, so he became a patrol.
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly.
bittersweet, but it's not so.
You doing with us?
I mean, it's not so dark that it's almost like you kind of feel guilty liking it. Like the
Right.
song Nebraska itself, like about it's kind of
Yeah.
like there's like this dichotomy
No,
of
there's
like
a kind
how
of
pretty it
sweetness
is.
to
It
it.
feels
Right,
it feels
but
like
Right.
it
It's
feels
not
like
as
you're looking at the
so
life
dark.
on PBS of a bunch of families who went on like murder sprees
Right.
and
Well,
stuff.
I mean, well, like I said, it really is like
Yeah.
he's pretty well known. Like, I mean, I don't know, what does it say about our country that we have so many like kind of people that have like kind of gone on like killing sprees?
I'll
that,
drink
like, you
to
kind of forget
to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cheers,
There you
everyone.
go.
Thank you, Jameson.
Cheers.
Thank you, Brian. There you go.
Brian. Thank
Brian
you.
Colantuno and the
Hi,
Trackside
Colantuno.
Tavern. Matt Darrow. Greg Pate. And again, Jameson.
But yeah, I
Never
think
gets easier.
This is and I'm not the boss authoritarian, of course.
Yeah.
So, but I do think this is kind of as dark as Bruce likes to get. I
Yeah.
think there are other artists who get very dark, and I think what's good about this is you can listen to it without feeling.
Right,
that
and
way,
some artists, when they go that route,
Yeah.
there's that Baroque, some of it, maybe they're going for that, but it almost
Yeah.
feels forced, and none of this feels forced.
No.
Well,
So it's
kind of
beautiful
folky
storytelling, yeah.
Which is
storytelling.
it's really interesting though, because so the song "Born in the USA," which was on the same demos, with the backing of the band, a lot of people just hear the main and they think that it's such a
Oh, it's
like
not-
happy
it's
patriotic.
not, yeah.
It's not. It has a dark side, so you can kind of see how it like would fit in.
That's
with
why.
the writing of
That's
the
why I want to.
Thematically,
That's why I want to
it
hear
fits.
an acoustic
Yes.
version of it with
Yeah.
maybe a ballroom piano or something instead of big
Something.
drums.
Yeah, to kind of because it would give it a completely
It
different
would sound
feel. So-
because the
I
thing
think-
is Reagan played it and he was not happy about it.
Right,
He was
well,
like,
yeah,
"Deal,
it's
I'm
like,
not-
no,
I'm-
that's
you're
not-
missing the
You're
point.
missing the
Right,
point.
exactly.
But then
you know.
every Republican, sort of presidential candidate has used it since.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, you're missing
don't
the
get
It's not.
it.
It's
point.
not. It's not a.
You-
Yeah.
I'm
Idiots,
actually
you know.
making fun of you.
I know.
Yeah.
But I think State Trooper, I'd say, is my favorite.
It's your
When you talk
favorite.
about your favorites,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because of it sounds like him covering an acoustic version of a suicide
Even
song.
though more than the song Nebraska, which I love, and what an opener, I think the song I have always knew most because I believe there might have been a black and white video for it with the song Atlantic City. I
Yeah.
think there was a video
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
And Atlantic City is a gorgeous song because I used to go to Atlantic City with my uncle when I was a kid, and I remember it just looked like, it never looked nice. I mean, it looked like, even when they tried to shine it like a diamond, it looked filthy, you know?
Right.
And there's something about it, like, and then again, the haunting echoes.
Right.
You feel like they're ghosts under boardwalks and stuff on the beach,
Right.
you know, or at least to me, that's what
And
I
that's
always
the
thought
one.
of.
Is that the one with the line that it's like some things when they die they
Yes,
what is
yes.
it?
Mhm. And
I wish I would have brought my glasses because
no,
I really love that line.
I'm not singing any
I could
Bruce Springsteen
not.
songs.
The
So.
lyric sheet's going to give you trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny that Bruce Springsteen's like, this is, you know, he still keeps it in New Jersey.
Yeah, always,
And,
yeah.
and if he's going to keep it, if he's going to do a seedy place, he goes to Atlantic City.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
funny.
and
Right.
it is
He goes
seedy
there.
and seamy.
It's
Yeah,
like
there's nothing
his
nice about
backdrop.
even when
Yeah.
horrible people, you know, thought it was nice.
Yeah.
It was never nice.
Well, I think the
Yeah.
song is ultimately about some guy that moves there or is moving there or going there because he's looking for getting into the crime scene, right?
Right.
Like the mob
Right.
scene.
Yeah.
So,
I
and
think
I think it's like but maybe everything that dies someday comes back. I think that's such
Yeah.
and that's one of my favorites on the album. I would say that those two are my favorites: Atlantic City.
Yeah,
and
that's
Highway
certainly,
Patrolman.
and that's the one that I know. State Trooper's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
You know, but it,
2-1
but
State Trooper, I guess.
2-1. Cassie just lost. But the
There's
thing,
something about just a single chord
Yeah.
played that just goes on.
I'm a big
and
fan of
telling
that.
the story,
It's
and
blues.
It
It's
getting,
yeah.
just,
And
you can't mess with that.
but then the other thing is you know it's a nice morning well spent with a cup of coffee for 40 minutes or whatever. Listen to the whole thing because it's like their dreamscapes. You know?
I found out like a lot. I think State Trooper is the one that he actually he wrote partly because he got a ticket on the New Jersey Turnpike. I think that's really it has something like that was kind of the inspiration.
Yeah.
And then the weird thing I'm pretty sure it's Highway Patrolman was the inspiration behind the movie The Indian Runner.
What?
What?
What search engine are you looking this stuff up on? I never knew that. I learned something
She
new
has
every
her
day.
sources.
Yeah, Google.
There you go.
Google is not a sponsor. Yes. But thank you, PBR, and thank you, Trackside.
Well, so
you-
what
yeah,
is
do
no
that.
no so if you would say that you had a least favorite, because I have a least favorite, I'm interested if you guys do.
I
No,
never. You know what's funny? I don't think of albums in that way anymore.
I normally don't, but there.
But there are
there's one
some
that-
records that I could say I can't
Yeah.
listen to that song.
Yeah.
Like he was talking about with that song by
Yeah.
Suicide. But I don't think I have one on here.
Yeah, I don't think I have one for this album. It's also a good and a lot of albums. You know, it's a great album that it's one you listen to all the way through.
Well, that's my point. Yeah.
And you don't skip any songs, and it feels weird to listen to. It's interesting that you're talking about like a Fugazi song and a Nebraska song. The Fugazi, that seems so jarring, but at the same time, if it works, it works.
If you're,
Yeah.
It'd be a weird one to just
I
throw
sh-
on.
I
one
shared an
song
art
randomly.
space in Brooklyn with a bunch of wonderful, talented surfers, skateboarders, graffiti artists, musicians.
Yeah.
And every day, one person can control,
Yeah.
and it's so much fun. So one day I'm
Yeah.
just listening to
your turn.
I'm listening to the Ruts and Stiff Little Fingers,
Right.
And this one day a skater, he put on, it was Fugazi. I'd say it was heavy on 13 songs, but it might have
Yeah.
been their whole catalog. But 13 songs in Nebraska, 1-1, I was like, wow, man, I wouldn't have thunk that.
Put this
And
together.
he's like, yeah, man. He goes, and that's the best part about it.
Well, one thing I really, really love about the show is because in this day and age, it's like it's very, very common to listen to things digitally, so that
Yes.
you are skipping things, you are listening
Right.
to your favorites. But this show gets me more in the habit of it's like. Yeah, you put on a record and whatever, but this show makes it where it's like you're going to listen to it all the way
Yeah.
through, and you're not.
Yeah. And
you're
think
gonna
about it
listen
as
to
a
the
whole
second side.
package.
Yeah, three on the
like,
ones and twos will never be about one song. It's about one
Right,
album.
Yeah.
exactly.
And in this day and age, which is very sad, and I don't know if it's ever going to come back, because we are record people, and starting from the first show we did, Clash of Sandinista, which was all over the place, but it took you on a ride.
Right.
Unfortunately, these days, especially with modern music that's made for the masses, which is disgusting and heinous, people like businessmen go, all you need is one good song on that record and
Yeah.
just try to sell that.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, if we want 12 songs on an album, 11 of them better be bangers.
It should
Like,
be- it
you
should
know
be-
what
it
you know
should
what I
be-
mean?
it should be
No,
a complete
we don't want
art.
that fluff stuff,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I guarantee you on this show, we're never going to bring you a record that doesn't have 11 out of 12 great
Yeah.
songs.
Right.
You
It's
know,
gonna be
I mean,
like
you know.
one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There might be one song that we don't like. You know,
Well,
that's it.
I'm gonna
But,
say
you know.
there's one song on here that is my least favorite on here, and that's "Mansion on the Hill," but only because to me the melody is too much like Nebraska, and I don't think it's as I don't like it as much as Nebraska. So to me, it's kind of like a. But that's.
But I
really
like
my
it because
only-
it sounds like a love letter, and it also. I'm a huge fan of, and I doubt he was thinking of John Coltrane when he made this record. Although that'd be awesome if he was. He was thinking about suicide. But I'm a big fan of artists. Wilco does this a lot, where throughout their record, they will hit 2 or 3 songs where they do similar notes that remind you of that.
Right.
And it sounds like
Phrases
a lovely,
and
lovely,
things.
love letter.
Yeah.
That maybe refers to, well, listen, I want you to think in the mindset of Nebraska, but a happier tone.
Maybe.
You know, there's an amazing book called Mansion on the Hill.
I know the book.
That's
Yeah.
about the music industry. And so I thought maybe it was about, I had to actually study the lyrics because I was like, maybe he's making this weird, parallel.
He
to
may
it.
have.
Oh,
been.
wait,
Do
did
you
the
have?
book-
Do
did
you
the
have
book
that
come out
book?
before?
Yeah, I believe it did.
Do you have that book?
No, I don't.
I'll have to get it.
But I
But
did get it.
speaking of,
But it is a great book. I've read.
Yeah.
But when you look at the lyrics, I don't think he was making a commentary on the music industry. I think it's
Right.
just a beautiful song.
it is a beautiful song,
Yeah.
and it's a beautiful love letter. And speaking of like exits or outros, what do you think of the last song?
Reason Believe.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it. I think.
It's
there's.
not the strong, but it's a great outro. You know?
It is a great outro. It is a great outro. I do prefer the first side of the album, really. Even though my least favorite song on it, but even saying my least favorite, it's like I don't hate it. I don't mind it. Like
Right.
like I still think it's a good
You'll
song.
still-
I still think it's
Well,
pretty.
no, I think side A is, although I love Stay True, I think side A is stronger side.
I do
Yes.
too.
That's like the horses at the track. They let the
Right.
doors go. you
It's
know?
a pretty good album that was recorded in one night on a.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
the
if
other
you
thing.
think
It's a
about
really,
that, that's
it's a
amazing,
really,
really, when you consider that.
That's
like,
nobody. I mean,
it's a really pretty mess.
handful of people
you know?
could
like
do something
even
pretty
like
accident.
okay, so if you didn't know that about this album, you'd still say it's a good album. It's a good album. But then when you learn that it was just a demo, like he was thinking this was just going to be a way to like throw his ideas to that. Then it's just like, wow, that takes it up.
Right, right,
Notches.
and I guarantee you, other pretty messes like. Other pretty mess artists that I love, like Paul Westerberg and the Replacements, were like, okay, this is what I want. Here come the regulars
Right.
to be like based on
yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yep.
You know, so I was, we're big fans of segues. I think I said love letter, and I think James got a love letter from someone in New York City,
Yes, I did. Let me
and
look at it.
I kind of,
Maybe Sue, you got some competition.
Yeah.
Sue? No.
who is it from?
It's actually from Tiffany from Harlem.
Ooh, we love Harlem. My brother Scott lives in Harlem. He's got it.
So,
Hey, Scotty.
so Tiffany writes, you have a lot of guests on these shows, and you have a lot of guests that are scheduled to come up. So that's really exciting. But who would you, if you could pick any guest, so one in the world, in any genre, from anywhere, one living and one no longer with us.
Oh my goodness.
Who would you have? Who would you want to have on this
Well, thank
show
you,
to
Tiffany,
talk about?
and hi, Tiffany. We can't wait to meet you in person.
Yes. Thank you, Tiffany.
Wow. Well, that's a really good question and a hard question because off the top of my head, I could probably think of 10 living and 10 dead.
Yeah. I think just go with what's on the top of your
Oh
head.
my
Like,
goodness.
don't overthink it.
Okay, I'm gonna say.
First thing that comes to mind.
I'm gonna say I'm having a dinner party.
Okay.
No, a luncheon, and I brought 2 guests. Okay, 2 guests living and 2 dead. So I'd say
Two.
I'd say
Oh,
Bob.
it's not just having one.
I'd say Bob Marley and Elvis dead. Love to hear
Okay.
because it's not just musicians, but it also is people who are artists, artisans, eccentric, whatever.
Yes, you did
And then,
specify, so.
dead, and then living. Nicolas Cage definitely because he's a weirdo and I love
Right.
him. But then who else do I find? I don't know, say Paul Weller. What? Yes, Paul Weller. Yes.
He actually wasn't. He wouldn't be. And I was like, oh, hey.
Paul Weller, yeah.
Good, because then hopefully I'd be invited.
I'm messing. Yeah. You're coming for dessert.
Good.
Yeah. Paul Weller's. I would love talking about soul, all kinds of soul music and everything. Yeah.
I mean, I just think he's such an amazing lyricist. It'd be cool to
hear his input and his thoughts.
Am I next? Or you
Yes.
go next.
You go next.
Sorry to mess up the game, picking 4 people.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Tom. Tom already picked mine, so I don't even get to go.
Game changer.
I think for living, I would pick Ian McCulloch.
Echo and the Bunnymen.
Echo and the Bunnymen.
Awesome.
Because, I love his lyrics, but I also think that I think he likes to mess with people.
I was
and he's
listening
a
to Porcupine
little
yesterday morning.
And it would be one of my favorites. Love it.
Beautiful.
I think he'd be fun. He's supposedly like really like kind of silly.
Big Leonard Cohen fan. I know that.
I think because he has a very, very, very thick Scouse accent, it would be kind of like repeat that. But I would love to.
He'd be repeating himself a lot.
Yeah, well, I would be asking him to. And then for Dead, even though it would probably be a mistake, I'd probably regret it right away. Marky Smith, just because.
That was my pick.
Wow! Yes.
What?
Well,
You've actually seen them live.
I love
Yeah.
Marky
I've never got to
Smith.
see him live,
But Marky
though.
Smith would probably wrestle you and like spit
I
on you and
know,
fight you. Like you'd be insane.
He'd like say to insult me and storm out. Who knows?
Yeah, it would be a
That's
disaster.
a good one though.
But
Okay,
it would
so
be
Cass,
amazing.
so far Cassie's
you would have
winning.
picked him too, even knowing
Marky Smith was my go-to person who's no longer with us. If he was on this show, he would talk about some rockabilly record, and he would be a complete nightmare.
Yeah, but it'd be wonderful.
But it would be amazing.
Okay, so could you have a plan B, a spare tire, since she
do you
picked
have a
Marky
plan B?
Smith?
God.
And then
See,
also one that's
I was
alive.
so focused on Marky Smith. Maybe I bring James Joyce. I bring the
Yeah,
other
that'd
James
be
Joyce.
wonderful. Yeah,
And
that's a
we
good
talk
be
about
awesome.
a Pogues record.
Oh my goodness.
That would be awesome.
One of the best bands, one of the best
Or
writers.
like
And what about Alive?
Alive. Let's go with Bjork.
Oof.
Or Björk. as they
Yes,
say.
Björk.
Is it Björk?
Or as Andre
She could
3000,
go
or
on.
as Andre 3000 says, Bjork.
Bjork.
Man, thank you,
She would be
Trackside
fun.
Tavern.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
Tiffany from Harlem.
Thank you, Tiffany
we
from
miss
Harlem.
everybody.
That was a really fun question.
Thank you, Matt, Greg Pate, Brian, Mikey, Steve, B. Kinch, Louis Sandoval, PBR,
Sandoval,
Jameson,
Jameson.
and Bruce Springsteen.
And thank you, Bruce
Bruce.
Springsteen.
The boss.
And
This
to
is-
all
New
you
Jersey's
for
finest.
watching.
And thank you, Lars Nagel, for picking this.
And Lars Nagel, yes, the Swedish Prince, and we'll get him soon down the road.
Do it.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.